Like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy deep, thought-provoking stories that make you question the world around you. Because today we're diving into a powerful exploration of justice, morality, and the difficult choices human beings face when there are no easy answers. Imagine yourself suddenly placed in a situation where every option feels wrong, yet you must act. That feeling of urgency, confusion, and moral pressure is exactly where this story begins. It's not just a thought experiment or a classroom discussion. It's a mirror held up to our own values. When we talk about justice, we often assume it's something clear and obvious, but real life has a way of complicating even our strongest beliefs. This story invites you to step into that discomfort and think deeply about what it truly means to do the right thing when the stakes are life and death. Picture yourself driving a trolley car, moving at an uncontrollable speed with no way to stop. Ahead of you on the track are 5 workers, completely unaware of the danger racing toward them. You try the brakes, but they fail. Panic sets in as you realize that unless something changes, these 5 people will die. Then you notice a second track branching off to the side. On that track stands a single worker. Your steering wheel works, and in that split second, you are faced with a choice that will define everything. Do you stay on course and allow 5 people to die, or do you turn the trolley and cause the death of one person instead? There is no escape from responsibility here. Whatever you do, someone will die, and the weight of that knowledge presses down on you. Most people, when asked what they would do, say they would turn the trolley onto the side track. The reasoning feels simple and almost undeniable. Losing one life seems less tragic than losing 5. This way of thinking comes naturally to many of us because we are trained to measure outcomes. We count lives, weigh losses, and try to minimize harm. It feels practical, rational, and even compassionate. In moments of crisis, people often believe that saving the greatest number of lives is the most moral choice available. The idea that one person's death could prevent a greater tragedy carries a powerful emotional pull, especially when time is short and the consequences are immediate. Some people even connect this kind of reasoning to real-world events, moments in history where individuals made terrible sacrifices to prevent even greater disasters. In those cases, the people involved are often praised as heroes, even though their actions involved loss and death. The underlying belief is that in extreme situations, moral purity may be impossible, and all we can do is choose the option that leads to the least suffering overall. From this perspective, the act of turning the trolley isn't seen as cruelty, but as tragic necessity. It's not about wanting anyone to die. It's about accepting that harm is unavoidable and trying to limit it as much as possible. But not everyone agrees with this way of thinking. A smaller group of people refuse to turn the trolley, even knowing that 5 lives will be lost. Their reasoning challenges the idea that numbers alone should determine what is right. They worry that once we start justifying the death of one person for the sake of many, we open the door to dangerous thinking. History offers grim examples of what happens when people decide that some lives are worth less than others. For them, deliberately choosing to kill someone, even to save others, crosses a moral line that should never be crossed. Their discomfort forces us to ask an unsettling question. Is it ever acceptable to intentionally sacrifice an innocent person, no matter how good the outcome seems? Now imagine a slightly different situation. This time, you're not the driver of the trolley. You're standing on a bridge, watching as the same runaway trolley speeds toward 5 workers on the track below. Once again, the brakes don't work, and the danger is unavoidable. As you look around, desperate for some way to intervene, you notice a very large man standing next to you on the bridge. If you were to push him over the edge, his body would stop the trolley, killing him but saving the 5 workers. The question is simple but disturbing. Would you push him? Suddenly, the confidence many people had in the first scenario begins to disappear. Even those who were quick to sacrifice one life to save 5 now hesitate, feeling that something about this situation is deeply wrong. When people are asked about this second scenario, the majority say they would not push the man. This reaction reveals something important about how we think about morality. Even if the outcome is the same, one person dies, 5 people live. The way the outcome is achieved matters to us. Physically pushing someone to their death feels like an act of direct violence, something far more personal and intentional than turning a steering wheel. It forces us to confront our own role in causing harm. The discomfort people feel here suggests that morality isn't just about results. It's also about the nature of our actions and the respect we owe to others as individuals. This tension between outcomes and actions lies at the heart of moral philosophy. On one side is the idea that consequences are what matter most. If an action leads to greater overall happiness or less suffering, then it is the right thing to do. On the other side is the belief that some actions are wrong in themselves, regardless of the benefits they might produce. Killing an innocent person, using someone as a means to an end, or violating basic human dignity are seen as moral boundaries that should not be crossed. These two ways of thinking often collide when we face extreme situations, and neither offers easy answers. Similar conflicts appear in medical ethics. Imagine you are a doctor in an emergency room with limited time and resources. 5 patients have moderate injuries that you could treat and save, but one patient is critically injured and would require all your attention. If you focus on the one, the 5 will die. If you save the 5, the one will die. Most people agree that the doctor should save the 5. Once again, the logic of numbers seems to guide our judgment. But now imagine a transplant surgeon with 5 patients who will die without new organs. A healthy person lies nearby, unaware. Should the surgeon kill one healthy person to harvest organs and save 5 lives? Almost everyone recoils from this idea, even though the math is the same. These examples show that our moral instincts are complex and sometimes contradictory. We are drawn to the idea of maximizing good outcomes, yet we also feel strong resistance to certain actions, no matter how beneficial the results might be. This struggle reveals 2 powerful moral frameworks that shape how we think. One focuses on consequences, asking us to calculate and compare outcomes. The other focuses on duties and rights, insisting that individuals should never be treated as tools for someone else's benefit. Neither framework fully resolves the tension on its own, but together they help us understand why these dilemmas feel so deeply troubling. As we explore these ideas, we begin to see that moral philosophy isn't just an abstract exercise. It forces us to examine our own beliefs, instincts, and values. It makes the familiar feel strange and challenges assumptions we didn't even realize we were making. This process can be uncomfortable, even unsettling, because once we start questioning our moral certainties, we can't simply return to ignorance. Philosophy has a way of changing how we see the world, and once that shift happens, there's no easy way back. This discomfort is not a flaw, it's the point. Moral reflection pushes us out of our comfort zones and asks us to live with uncertainty. It reminds us that the questions we wrestle with in thought experiments are the same questions we live out in real life, through laws, policies, and everyday decisions. We may never find final answers that satisfy everyone, but the act of thinking deeply about these issues matters. It sharpens our judgment and makes us more aware of the moral weight of our choices. Skepticism offers an easy escape from this struggle. It tells us that because these questions have been debated for centuries without resolution, there's no point in trying to answer them. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's the end of it. But this kind of resignation ignores an important truth. Even when we refuse to think about moral questions, we still act on implicit answers every day. Our choices reveal what we value, whether we acknowledge it or not. The real challenge, then, is not to avoid moral reasoning, but to engage with it honestly and thoughtfully. Philosophy doesn't promise comfort or certainty. Instead, it invites us into a lifelong conversation about justice, responsibility, and what it means to live well with others. This journey carries risks, but it also offers something rare, a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we share. And once that restlessness of reason is awakened, it continues to push us forward, asking us not just what we believe, but why. As these moral dilemmas unfold, something interesting happens to the way we think. We begin with strong instincts about what feels right, but as soon as those instincts are challenged by a slightly different situation, our confidence starts to crack. The trolley problem shows us that our moral judgments are not fixed rules stored neatly in our minds. Instead, they are flexible, emotional, and deeply tied to context. When we are forced to explain why we believe something is right or wrong, we often realize that our reasons are shakier than we expected. This is not a weakness. It is a sign that moral reasoning is a living process, not a formula. What makes these scenarios so powerful is that they expose the tension between intention and outcome. Turning a steering wheel feels different from pushing a human being with your own hands, even if the result is the same. Many people sense that actively using someone as a tool to stop harm crosses a moral boundary. It feels like reducing a human life to an object, a means to an end. This reaction suggests that our moral instincts care not only about how many lives are saved, but also about respect, consent, and human dignity. We are uncomfortable with the idea that some people can be sacrificed simply because it produces a better numerical result. This same discomfort appears again in medical examples. Saving 5 patients instead of 1 feels acceptable when the deaths result from limited time or resources, but it feels horrifying when saving 5 requires intentionally killing an innocent person. The difference lies in agency and purpose. Letting someone die because you cannot save everyone feels tragic, but killing someone to harvest their organs feels like a betrayal of the very role of a doctor. These examples reveal that morality is not just about maximizing survival. It is also about honoring certain boundaries that define who we are and how we treat one another. Philosophy enters precisely at this point of discomfort. It does not rush in to give easy answers or moral shortcuts. Instead, it slows us down and asks us to examine our reasons. Why do consequences matter so much to us in some cases, but not in others? Why do certain actions feel categorically wrong, even when they promise good outcomes? These questions have been debated for centuries, not because thinkers failed to answer them, but because they touch something deeply human. They reflect the ongoing struggle between compassion, fairness, fear, and responsibility that shapes every society. By the time we reach this point, one thing becomes clear: avoiding these questions is impossible. Even choosing not to think about morality is itself a moral stance. We live out answers to these dilemmas every day through our laws, our institutions, and our personal choices. Philosophy simply forces us to confront what we are already doing, but with open eyes. It unsettles us, yes, but it also sharpens us. And that restlessness it creates is not a flaw to be escaped, but a signal that we are taking justice, life, and human worth seriously. That is where this discussion ends, not with certainty, but with awareness.